Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yanique Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, Joey Coleman. Joey helps companies keep their customers. He is an award-winning speaker. He works with organizations around the world, ranging from small startups to major brands such as Deloitte, Hyatt Hotels, Zappos and Whirlpool. His first 100 days methodology fuels the remarkable experiences his clients deliver and dramatically improves their profits. His Wall Street Journal No. 2 best-selling book, Never Lose a Customer Again, offers strategies and tactics for turning one-time purchasers into lifelong customers. When he's not speaking to audiences around the globe, Joey enjoys spending time with his amazing wife and 2 young sons in the mountains of Colorado. So without further ado, welcome Joey.
Thank you, Yanique. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Awesome. So we would like for you to share with us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know I read the bio and it kind of tells us, formally who you are, but we want to connect with our guests emotionally. So we'd like to tell us, how did you get on this journey of customer experience? Are there any triggers that kind of propelled you into this industry? And, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I appreciate that. I have a really eclectic background, which I suppose is the polite way of saying I've done a lot of completely random things that made no sense to the outside world as I was going through it. But now, with hindsight, looking back, there's a common thread. So I was a government international relations major in college. I then went straight to law school where I studied litigation and national security law and international law. I worked for the CIA, the White House, and the Secret Service. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I taught executive education, kind of nighttime MBA type courses. I ran a division of a promotional products company. I ran an ad agency for over 15 years. And now I'm a full-time professional speaker. So I travel around the world giving speeches, leading workshops, and consulting with clients to help them keep their customers. The thread that ties all of these crazy different jobs and careers in this life that I've had the blessing of leading together is the fact that in each of the positions I've held, the way you excelled was to have a keen understanding of the human condition. Why do people do the things they do? And what can we do to make them do the things we'd like them to do? And so that's kind of the common thread. And that's really what led me to this world of customer experience. I was running my ad agency. And of course, we were very focused on helping our clients develop websites and ad campaigns and brand identity kits that were designed to bring customers into the fold. But the more I did this, the more I realized that customers were running out the back door as quickly as we brought them in the front door. And I quickly realized that focusing on customer retention was actually a more valuable and more important practice than focusing only on customer acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Wow, your background is extremely eclectic.
It's very eclectic, to say the least, yes.
But I'm sure it forms for great stories when you're speaking to these different people throughout the world, being able to draw on different experiences from different industries, because it kind of pulls it together, because at the end of the day, even though you've worked in so many different areas, we're still human beings regardless of where we're from or what we do.
Correct. Yeah, I'm a big believer that regardless of whether you see yourself in a B2B or a B2C or a B2G environment, whether you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or an employee, no matter where you fall in kind of the different things you do as part of your job or career, you're interacting with other human beings. And the better we can understand the journey that our fellow humans are on and meet them where they're at, the more we will be able to achieve the goals that we have for our business or for our life or for our growth.
Yeah, so true. So I was lucky enough to be one of the persons that you sent an advance copy of your book to, Never Lose a Customer Again.
Yes.
And I have been reading it. It's been so amazing, Joey. I mean, I guess because it feeds my soul, because, this is all that I care about. I'm so passionate about customer experience and customer service. And there's some valid points that you have in here. But there's a part of the book that I would love if you could just shed some light on it for us as it relates to what you wrote about in the book, especially as it relates to the topics on the 8 phases of customer experience. So the assessing, the admitting, the affirming. If you could go through those with us in a very summarized way, just to emphasize that, the experience is not just a one-time thing, but it's an amalgamation of everything together.
Absolutely. So in the book, I outline my way of thinking, or kind of the way I've developed in coordination with my clients, of thinking about the customer journey. And I believe there are 8 potential phases that your customers have the ability to go through if you're willing to hold their hand and help them navigate them. All 8 phases start with the letter A. I spent enough time working in Washington, D.C. and in government not to give an acronym that I was expecting people to remember, so I made it easy. The goal is to get your customers to give you straight A's on your report card. So all of the phases start with the letter A. The first one is assess. This is phase 1. This is when a prospect is considering whether or not they want to do business with you. In common parlance, we call this marketing and sales. Then we go to phase 2, admit. This is day 1 of the first 100 days of the customer relationship. In the admit phase, the prospect acknowledges that they have a problem or a need that they believe you can help. And so they transition from being a prospect to being a customer. Almost as quickly as that happens, they enter phase 3, the affirm phase. In common parlance, this is buyer's remorse. This is where the customer begins to doubt the decision that they just made. And your job as the business is to counteract those negative and doubtful emotions by reinforcing the wisdom and the benefit of their purchase decision.
Right.
We then come to phase 4, activate. This is the first major experience the customer has with your brand after the sale. So if you sell a product, this could be the unboxing experience or when they get the product home. If you sell a service, this could be the kickoff meeting or the first time you start to deliver on the service. I call it activate because I think it's important to energize the relationship when you formally start working together and to really set the tone for what the interactions in the relationship are going to be going forward. So we're halfway through the 8 phases, right? Assess, admit, affirm, activate. Then we come to phase 5. And to be candid, Yanique, this is where most businesses start to fall off the rails a little bit. See, most businesses deliver the product or service and then they're kind of done. And they miss the opportunity in phase 5 to acclimate the customer to doing business with you. See, most businesses have sold their product hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of times. But to a new customer, it's the first time they've ever had an interaction with you. So you need to hold their hand and get them familiar with your way of doing business. After that, we come to phase 6, accomplish. This is when the customer achieves the goal that they had when they originally decided to do business with you. Every customer, before they make a purchase decision or when they make a purchase decision, has a goal in mind of what they're hoping to accomplish. If as the business we don't track that and measure whether we're making progress towards succeeding at achieving that goal and then celebrate with the customer when they accomplish that goal, we miss the opportunity to validate the original purchase decision. And if you don't successfully acknowledge the accomplish phase, you can't get to the last 2 phases. Okay, so the last 2 phases are phase 7, adopt. This is when the customer becomes loyal to you and your brand. They're only going to do business with you. They'll happily buy whatever you create. They've definitely become a big supporter of yours. And then last but not least, we reach phase 8, the advocate phase, right? This is when that adopting customer becomes a raving fan, referring their friends and colleagues to you. So these are the 8 phases that a customer, as I said, has the potential to go through, regardless of what business you're in, regardless of whether your product or service, domestic or international, small, medium, or large. All human beings have the potential to go through these phases. It's just a question of whether, as organizations, we want to help them do it.
Amazing, amazing. And so, I like the fact that you have, the straight A's theme. I think it's so important to recognize that they cannot become evangelists or advocates of our business unless they've gone through some process. I think people think that people are just going to walk and speak great things about our organization just because, we've sold them an item once or we've sold them an item twice. And it's so much more than that. There is a process that goes through that, that will convert that person from just feeling like, okay, I just did business with an okay company versus I just did business with a great company and I need to tell everybody else and I want my friends to shop from them and I want my family members to shop from them.
Right. Right. And all too often, I think we ask for those referrals too early in the process.
Right.
We immediately after, and I don't know if you've had this experience, Yanique, but for a while it was very popular, especially in e-commerce settings. When you bought something online, for after you went through the checkout cart, they would hit you with a pop-up screen that said, who else do you know that would be interested in our product or service? And they wanted you to enter an email. And I'm thinking to myself, I haven't even received the product or service that I signed up for, and you already want me to be sharing it with other people?
True.
No, it's way too soon. It's kind of like being on a date with someone, and you go on a first date, and before the waiter takes your order for what you want for dinner, your date says, so I'd like to meet your mom and dad. It's just too fast, right? It's too fast. It's going to make me anxious. I don't even want to order then, right?
Yeah.
It's just too early in the relationship. Don't rush me.
Agreed.
So I think what we need to do is we need to make sure I don't think you should be asking for referrals until the customer has accomplished their goal, that phase 6 level where they achieve the goal they originally had when they decided to do business with you. I think after that is when you start to ask for referrals and additional business because they have proof that their investment has had a nice return.
True. Very true. So we've spoken about the different steps. We've spoken about why it's important for you to go through the process in order for them to become, your evangelists and your advocators. How do you feel? I mean, you travel all over the world. I'm sure you do a lot of workshops or speaking engagements in the United States, probably in Europe and other parts of the world. Not sure if you've been to the Caribbean as yet, but
I have many times. Yes. No, I've spent time in the Bahamas and Aruba and Jamaica and love spending time in the Caribbean.
Oh, great. Have you been here to Jamaica for recreational or business purposes?
Both actually. My first time I went to Jamaica, let's just say I was in law school. It was spring break and I was in Negril. So we'll fully qualify that as recreational purposes. But I most recently was there about 2 years ago now for an annual meeting of a group that I'm a part of and did a presentation there, which was great fun up at Half Moon Bay.
Very nice. So the next time you come, we're definitely going to get you to attend a customer service conference, hopefully.
Ooh, I love it. That would be great.
Great. So one of the things I wanted to ask you as it relates to your different trips and travels all over and, being a subject matter expert as it relates to customer experience, how do you feel about customer experience on a global level currently as at where we are now in June 2018?
Well, Yanique, one of the things that you probably had learned from some of our exchanges back and forth before scheduling this conversation, I have a tendency to be pretty direct and pretty blunt in my feelings and my beliefs, which sometimes can get me into trouble, but it's kind of the way it goes. I believe as a general rule, the bar for customer experience on the planet is lying on the ground. I think that most businesses do very little to pay attention to customer experience. I'm in the space, as are you, and I know the people that are in the space, we work very hard at it, but I think globally, it is not nearly given the priority that it needs to be given. I think more often than not, customer service gets attention, but customer experience doesn't. And I see a distinction between those two phrases. I define customer service as something that is more reactive, right? Solving the customer's problem, helping them to navigate using your product or service. Whereas customer experience, I think, is proactive. It's all the perceptions that your customer has based on all the touch points and interactions they have with you. So I think most companies that are doing anything are just kind of in triage reactionary state, a customer service state, as opposed to thinking more holistically, how can we create the most remarkable interaction possible that is going to catch our customers off guard, is going to surprise and delight them, and is going to leave them wanting more.
That is so true. I would definitely have to agree with you on that for sure. It's definitely more of a proactive approach as it relates to service, customer service. And of course, customer experience is taking everything into account, more of a holistic approach, and not just from a face-to-face point of view, but just every possible touch point or channel that the customer could possibly have an interaction with you.
Indeed.
All right. So tell me now, how do you stay motivated every day?
Oh, I love what I do, Yanique. It's pretty easy. Being on stage is such a pleasure and such a delight, and I take very seriously my role and responsibility to educate an audience, to entertain an audience, to keep them engaged. I just absolutely love it. So every day I'm on stage is fantastic, and the days I'm not on stage, I'm preparing for the days that I will be on stage. So it's just absolutely incredible. I also really connect to the message that I'm trying to promote, which is we need to care more about each other as human beings.
True.
Our businesses have a responsibility to not only take care of our customers, but to take care of our employees. And those two things have a tendency to feed upon themselves. The better experience you create for your employees, the better experience they can create for your customers. The better experience you create for your customer, the better experience it creates for your employees. It's just a nice little loop that feeds on itself.
Agreed. And so, internal customer service is very, very important. The health of your organization, not just the health of the employees, but, how they feel about the business is so, so critical. One of the things that we say in workshops, or I'll ask the participants, if their company sells a particular product or service, I always ask them if they're actually a user. Do they actually consume this product or service? Because that to me is a key indication if they believe in the company that they work for.
Absolutely. And it's shocking how rare it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if your experience, but in my experience, I ask a very similar question, and I'm always amazed at how few of the employees use the product or service. And what I'm even more amazed by is that the businesses don't make it easy for their employees to use the product or service.
Correct.
For example, because I travel a lot, I find myself in restaurants often. And one of the things I always like to ask the waiter or waitress when I'm in a restaurant getting ready to order is, what are the 2 or 3 things on the menu that are your favorites? What do you like, or what do you recommend, or what are the best things? And it never ceases to amaze me how it's very clear the way they describe things that they haven't actually tasted the dish they're recommending. If I ran a restaurant, I would have it set up so that every employee in their first month on the job sampled every single dish we serve.
Yep.
And then they had a context. And then about every 3 or 4 months, I'd run them through that cycle again. And I'd give them the chance to try the specials and to try the regular items and to develop kind of their own palate as it related to the menu. And it's not just restaurants. I mean, this can apply in every business on the planet. Are your employees actually users of your product or service and customers of your business? And if they are, what are you learning from them and creating opportunities for them to speak more intelligently about what you offer?
So true. Because I think out of what you are saying mostly is your employees are actually one of your biggest advocates as well.
100%.
So
100%. And I think, if I may, one of the interesting things is we ask our employees to create remarkable customer experiences, but many of our employees have never had a remarkable customer experience. Let me explain what I mean by that. I was at an event recently doing a workshop for a company, and the CEO told me, I want to have first class service. I want to have Ritz-Carlton service. I want to have white glove service and create those type of experiences for our customers. I said, okay. So we got the whole company together and I said, here's the deal. How many of you have heard the CEO talk about the importance of a Ritz-Carlton first-class white glove experience? And every hand in the room went up. I said, great. Let me ask you a few questions. Number one, how many of you have ever flown first class? And the CEO proudly raised his hand and the CFO raised their hand and no one else in the room raised their hand. And I said, okay, how many of you have ever spent the night at a Ritz-Carlton? And the CEO proudly raised his hand. The CFO put his hand down. And still none of the other people in the room had their hand up. And then I said, okay, one last question. How many of you have ever eaten a meal that was delivered by waiters wearing white gloves? And no one put their hand up.
Wow.
And I turned to the CEO.
But that's the service they want to deliver.
Exactly. And I turned to the CEO and I said, it's really difficult to expect our employees to deliver a world-class customer experience when they've never had a world-class customer experience. So if there were one piece of advice that I would give to business owners listening, it would be make sure that your employees have a context and a framework for the type of experience you're asking them to provide for your customers.
Mm-hmm. It all starts from within. That is a very powerful message. Amazing. Now, I'd like for you to tell us what are some of the online resources, tool, websites, or app that you can't absolutely live without in your own business?
Oh, it's interesting. I must confess, I am probably one of the least online connected individuals that has ever been on your podcast, right? I use online resources, but they're not very complex. I don't have a huge presence on social media. I don't use a lot of different tools, but one that I do use and I find to be incredibly effective and has helped my business dramatically is a tool and a service called Mixmax, Mixmax, Mixmax. And Mixmax is a scheduling tool. It's kind of an add-on that you can connect to your Gmail account or your email account that allows you to click on a little link and offer available appointment times when scheduling. That has made my life so much easier because then when people get that email, I can say I'm available at these 3 or 4 times. When they click on that time link, it automatically books it on my calendar. And if I've given the same time as a potential slot to 2 people, when they click on it, it will tell them that that slot is no longer available and offer one of the other ones. It just has taken the 17 emails back and forth to do scheduling and really reduced it dramatically. And I actually like Mixmax better than some of the other calendaring services because some of the other ones, it gives you access to the person's calendar and you can see a bunch of things, but you kind of have to figure out where to insert yourself. Whereas this one, I feel like proactively says, I care enough about you, person I'm sending the email, to say I've allocated these particular windows of availability, which one works for you. And they can focus in on it a little bit more than looking through all of the available times on the calendar.
That makes sense. Okay. So that's Mixmax, and we'll have the link for that tool in the show notes of this episode. So Joey, could you tell us some of the books that have had the biggest impact on you?
Oh my goodness, Yanique, this is a really challenging but fantastic question because for context, I'm in the process of moving right now, and so I've just recently packed up our books, and we have north of 5,000 books in our house.
Wow.
Yeah, so I love books. I read a ton of books. I love being surrounded by books. There's so many books that have had a tremendous impact on me. I think back to, some of the first business books I read, which included Harvey Mackay's Beware the Naked Man Who Offers You the Shirt Off His Back, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, Dale Carnegie's book, book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, tons of the writings of Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, and just lots of books that I read kind of back in the day when I first was starting. Then there's a bunch of business books that I read kind of as my thoughts around customer experience were evolving. My good buddy Shep Hyken has written a number of fantastic books on customer experience, as well as Scott McCain and Jay Baer and our mutual friend Dan Gingas, and a number of folks that are kind of write more specifically in the customer experience space. I also try to read fiction from with some regularity because I think if we're really looking at the human condition, reading fiction helps us to understand people as well. So I read everything from science fiction to fantasy to kind of pleasure reading fiction in the kind of espionage and spy novel space. So I try to read across a really wide swath of genres and topics.
Very nice. Okay. So we're going to have links to some of the books that Joey would have mentioned in his fulsome explanation that he gave us a while ago of the books that have had the biggest impact on him. And some of them we've had previous podcast guests mentioned when we've asked this similar question. Like, for example, Jay Baer's books, and we've had Jay on our podcast as well. And we're also going to have in the links of this episode, the link to Joey's book, Never Lose a Customer Again, because it's an amazing book. And I think anybody that listens to this episode should definitely head on over to Amazon and purchase a copy. So,
thank you. I appreciate that, Yanique.
So we have a lot of listeners who are business owners and managers who feel they have great products and services, but somehow they lack the constantly motivated human capital. If you were sitting across the table from that person, what's the one piece of advice that you would give them to have a successful business?
Well, and to make sure I understand the question, Yanique, are you saying that they have challenges with their own motivation, or they have challenges with the motivation of their employees?
With the motivation of their employees. So the human capital
awesome.
Would be the teams.
That's what I figured you were mentioning, but I just wanted to make sure I completely understood the question. Yes, I think this goes back to that story I told, right? The best way to motivate your employees is to make sure that they're having an incredible experience. As the business owner or the manager or the executive, your employees are your primary customers. Let me say that again. Your employees are your primary customers. You need to be taking care of them. You need to be holding their hand to navigate them through the 8 phases. You need to be making sure that they're having a remarkable experience when they come to work. And so I think if there was a question around, I think there are a lot of business owners that say, well, our employees just don't get it. They're not motivated. They don't come with the kind of excitement that I need them to come to work. I usually would ask those type of executives or owners, well, are you excited about the fact that those employees come to work?
True.
Do you let them know that?
True.
You show them that in your words and in your actions and in your behaviors. And usually by the time I get to that level of questioning, they're like, well, maybe not as much as I could. And I'm like, great. So there's a huge opportunity for us to improve the employee experience.
Mm-hmm. So basically you're saying then that the gap that exists, why there's constantly motivated human capital, is the leadership influence that drives that whole engagement. So recruitment is critical because you have to hire the right people. But after hiring them, there are things that you need to do to sustain their interest in what they're doing every day so that they can be motivated, correct?
Absolutely. And you need to sustain your interest in them.
Yes.
I think part of the challenge we have in HR is that it's run like many businesses are run with their external customers. We spend all this time courting, marketing and selling, filling the funnel, trying to convince someone to come work for us, trying to get them in the door. And then they start and they show up for their first day on the job and we don't have a desk for them. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't know anyone to go to lunch with, or maybe if we do an onboarding program, it's a day or two, and then we kind of lead them to fend for themselves. We need to hold our employees' hands, especially through the first 100 days of the employee relationship. What are we doing to make sure that they're achieving the goal they had when they came to work? See, lots of times we don't even ask our employees, what's your goal?
True.
Is your goal just to get a check? Is your goal to grow a career? Is your goal to explore something new that you haven't thought about before? Is your goal to put to work the things you studied in school and have that be compensated for what you learned? Every employee has different motivations. Oh, and by the way, those motivations change. They evolve over time. And so what did motivate them to take the job in the first place 6 months in might not be the motivation anymore.
True.
Employers and managers need to have a finger on the pulse as to what's going on with their employees. And that's how you get motivated employees.
Amazing, amazing. I love all the responses you've given. I hope this episode blows up so much that everybody will be just contacting you and basically wanting to engage with you. But these are things that we talk about all the time in different workshops and when people bring us in to give consulting advice. And so when we have the same people shouting the same message, then it doesn't seem like what I'm saying is crazy because,
I hear you loud and clear. Absolutely. It takes a village, people. We all need to be kind of singing the importance of customer experience together.
Amazing. Now, Joey, could you tell us what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about, either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people?
Well, I would say there's two things that I'm really excited about right now. One more professional and one more personal. On the professional side, I am just so thankful and appreciative of the tremendous support for the launch of the book. When we're recording this, the book has been out for about 2 months now. We had great success not only during the launch, but since then. I continue to get wonderful feedback and reviews on Amazon from people and people sharing how they've been able to put the principles that are outlined in the book into practice in their own business, and they're already seeing huge results. So that's been super exciting to me. The book culminates and kind of represents, I would say 20 years of my professional career, but it's really more 45 years of my entire life career because it's all the different things that I've been involved with and all the things I've learned about human beings, and trying to put that down onto paper as a way for hopefully to provide some value to other people that helps them understand themselves and their customers and their employees better. So that's been really exciting. On a personal note, we're recording this, and in 2 days I am moving from my home in Evergreen, Colorado, which is high in the Rocky Mountains, about an hour west of Denver. I'm moving up the state and down the mountain a little bit to Boulder, Colorado, where we'll be a little bit closer to civilization and all the wonderful things. Our neighbors will be humans as opposed to bears and mountain lions and elk, which are my neighbors now. So we'll have the chance to kind of have a new chapter and a new experience for my wife and I and our 2 young boys. So excited about that, and kind of moves I think are a great opportunity to recommit and rejuvenate and set new habits and new practices. And so I'm really excited about what this transition offers for our family in our personal lives, but also for me in my professional life.
Great. Amazing. Amazing. Now, Joey, could you tell our listeners where they can find you online? I know you mentioned earlier you're not very big on social media.
No, but our mutual friend Dan Genghis teases me like crazy about this. So I am on Twitter. It's the Joey Coleman, nice and pretentious sounding since someone already had Joey Coleman. So it's at the Joey Coleman on Twitter, but I'm not on there a lot, to be completely honest. The best way to find me is on my website, which is joeycoleman.com. That's Joey, Joey, like some young 5-year-old you probably know. Coleman, Coleman, like the outdoor camping equipment company, although no relation. So joeycoleman.com is the best way to find me, to learn about my work and to connect.
Awesome. Now, before we wrap our interview up, we always like to ask our guests, what's one quote or saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you would revert to this quote to kind of help you to refocus and just get back on track?
Oh, it's both an interesting and a timely question, Yanique, because as you might imagine, with the travel schedule I keep of being on the road about 2.5 weeks out of the month, and just getting back from a trip about a week ago, I was on the road for about 3 weeks. My family got sick while we were on the road. As you know, we had to reschedule our recording, and that's just never fun to have a sick family, especially when you're not at home. That makes it even worse. And then we got home and we're moving in 2 days. So my quote would be from the incomparable quote master Winston Churchill, who said, "When you're going through hell, keep going." So that's kind of what I've been trying to do as of late. And I don't want to be overly dramatic. My life is very blessed. I feel very fortunate. But there's been a lot of stress lately with the travel and the move and kind of the craziness of the book launch and a number of things. And so my goal has been just to keep putting one foot in front of the other, trusting that this will all eventually work out beautifully.
Yeah. Just keep going. Just keep your head up. Keep going. It's funny you said that because I was at the gym this morning and one of the persons was wearing a shirt and it said, "Don't give up or don't just quit." But when you cancel out two of the letters out of two of the words, the phrase now read, "Just do it," which is the Nike, tagline.
Yes. I think probably, if not the best, one of the best taglines in the world. I'm not a big fan of taglines because I think most taglines are watered down platitudes that could easily be given to any company. You could take the tagline and apply it to another company without anyone missing a beat. But I always point to Nike's "Just Do It" as one of the best out there. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And it cannot, as you said, it can be applicable to any industry or any area. I mean, even in kids, going to school or trying to advance themselves athletically or academically, you can, just let them know that, I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that's holding you back is your own fear. So just do it.
Absolutely.
Well, I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Yanique. So did I. It was a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much for the work you do to spread the customer experience good news and for kindly inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it was our pleasure. And again, I just want to plug again that Joey's book is amazing. I haven't finished reading it yet, but I mean, I don't want to even put it down for a moment. It's called Never Lose a Customer Again, and it's available on Amazon. So if you haven't purchased a copy of the book yet, I suggest you head on over to Amazon immediately and get a copy. It's an amazing book and it's applicable to any kind of business, small, medium, or large. Even if you're an employee, there's some great nuggets in there that you can take away as well.
Oh, thanks, Yanique. I really appreciate that. And one thing I'll add, if I may, and I often mention this on podcasts, if you've enjoyed listening to my voice, and some people do and some people don't, I actually narrate the audiobook. So if you want to have this experience of hearing me tell more stories like I did in our conversation on the podcast today, you can check out the audiobook version of the book, Never Lose a Customer Again.
Awesome. And is that available on Audible?
It is, yes.
Nice. Very good. All right. So thank you again, Joey, for joining us on Navigating the Customer Experience. Again, I just wanted to mention to our guests that if you would like to connect with us on our Facebook group, it's Navigating the Customer Experience Community, and you can follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. So until next time, I'm your host, Yanique Grant. We really appreciate your support of this podcast. Are you ready to grow your business even more? Or improve your leadership skills? Or train your team members in the art of customer service? Give us a call at 305-848-0815 or visit our website at www.yaniquegrant.com. That's YANIQUEGRANT.com. Remember, 305-848-0815 or visit our website at yaniquegrant.com. Our new online course, Mastering Customer Experience and Increasing Your Revenue, is now available. The link for this will be on the show notes of each episode starting September 7, 2016. The first 2 modules are free, so hop on over, have a look, and take the steps to increase your revenue.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.